Yeah. Now we are joined by the president of the United Philippine Surfing Association, Dr. George Canlas. Doc, maraming salamat po for joining us.
Good evening, Carlo. Good evening, Magoo. Good evening to all the listeners.
Kulang, Carlo. The legendary Dr. Canlas. Well, hindi ka basketball player pag di mo kilala si Doc Canlas.
Kasi Doc, after a player gets injured, the first two sentences of his interview would involve your name immediately. Laging may Doc Canlas.
Pa-appointment na.
It's a bane and a boon. Kasi expectations. But so far, we've been doing well. Yeah. Fortunately.
Doc, you're rocking that Pilipinas surfing shirt. Again, you serve as the president of the NSA for surfing. Can you just tell us how this came about, this journey to become the head of that NSA?
Okay, you have to understand, surfing was a lifestyle. No? It wasn't really a sport. Yeah. So in the early 2000s, I would surf. And then my boys, my two sons, elder sons, got interested to it. And then we got in contact with the community. And we realized, although there was one league that was, let's say, an event league, they just put up, there was nothing that was putting all the surfers together. So in 2007, we actually formed the Republic Surfers of the Philippines, and very small coverage. We had a couple of events, and then we gave some scholarships to the deserving ones. We would coordinate with certain. If you remember, there was Aloha Board, sports, and things like that. We'd coordinate with them to give to the surfers. Fortunately, nagka-Bali Beach Games, and the first time the Philippines needed a surfing team, and I think this was 2010. For the 2010 Bali Beach Games, the POC actually gave us a probationary membership. So we sent a team to the Bali Beach Games, and fortunately, it was our surfer, it was our athlete who won the highest medal in that Bali Beach Games. That was Luke Landrigan. He won the silver sa longboard. He actually could have won the gold because he was way ahead. Pero the way things are, naubusan siya ng waves, naunahan siya ng Japanese. So he got the silver. And that brought us sa ng surfing world. So International Surfing Association, the International Federation contacted me. So we were recognized as that group. But still, it was a lifestyle sport. I mean, it wasn't really competitive. In fact, ang mga problema ko nun, I'll find a tournament for our surfers. We'll fix the plane tickets. We're supposed to send them to Bali. Meron na silang hotel. Tapos hindi magigising yung mga humag. Papagalitan ko sila. Ang hirap na nga mga. They would answer me na chill na. Doc, okay lang yan. Next year na lang. It's a different world. And then the ISA decided to make a push for the Olympics. And that's when it started getting heavy for us. So we had to change our name to the present name, UPSA, to have a bigger mandate for our constitution, our SEC registration, and everything. And this we established in 2016. By then, I felt I was too old for it. So I told the surfers, kayo na. Actually, Luke was a vice president. He was a push. But he felt na hindi niya kaya yung politics. And sure enough, I said, okay, I'll do it. And fortunately, we were able to put in the Southeast Asian Games. And magandang showing sa Southeast Asian Games. And so the rest is how you know about it. The surfing community got together for the Southeast Asian Games. Maliit lang naman kami. And now we're doing pretty well.
Speaking of that last Southeast Asian Games, yun yung nag-ingay sa buong Pilipinas. I think sa whole region, ano?
Yeah.
Yung ginawa ni Roger Kasugay, sir. Sabi mo nga, surfers don't really consider this a sport. It's a lifestyle. And I think that epitomizes exactly what you just said there, sir.
Yes. In fact, if you talk to Roger now, isipin nyo, Roger wore the Pierre de Coubertin World Fair Trophy Award. That's a very prestigious award.
Yeah.
Mga kasama nyo doon, sila Wayne Gretzky, sila Stefan Edberg. They're the people who won that award. So he knows that he did something, but if you talk to him, ano pa rin siya? Na,
Chill lang.
okay, yeah, okay lang. I'll do the same thing. It's a lifestyle. It's again, like what I said earlier, it might be a bane or a boon because we need to push them. We need to push them to be more competitive. When we used to hold surf competitions, may party after.
Yeah.
So we have to get them out of that mindset and just be competitive. We experienced that sa first World Surf League, World Surf Games ng ISA, 3 years ago. Medyo na ano sila eh. First time we went as a Philippine team, the surfers medyo nagulat eh at the pomp and pageantry of an international event. Naka-uniform ka ng Philippines, may Philippine flag ka, and the way they were quartered and everything. They're still trying to get into the Philippine team mode and brotherhood pa rin ng surfing eh. It's still a brotherhood no matter what you. So the competitiveness, although it's there, I think we still have to push it a little.
Pagka yata may bagyo sa Pilipinas, mga surfer lang ang masaya, no, sir?
Oh, exactly. In fact,
Mas maganda alon eh.
sila palagi ang hinuhugot. And if you remember nung Southeast Asian Games, may bagyo.
Yeah.
And nakatulong yun sa surfers natin. Ang nangyari kasi doon, with the Fisgok, si Kong Bumble and the competition manager, si Triathlon, oh my God, head of that, Tom Carrasco, we didn't divulge right away kung saan yung competition. We didn't tell the Southeast Asian Games Federation na sa San Juan, La Union tayo. So they were guessing. A month, about 6 weeks before the competition, doon lang namin sinabi sa San Juan. So big advantage sa atin yun, especially nung nagkabagyo. Ang problema, Myanmar sent the team immediately the week after. So 5 weeks before competition, may Myanmar team na sa San Juan. It created problems for the organizing committee because we had to provide security, etc., etc. But in the end, it worked out for the Philippines. Nagkabagyo. So we won the longboards, and then we medaled in the shortboards, which are the forte of the Indonesians. And we came out as overall champions in surfing. So it was pretty good.
Doc, as you said, surfing is still, a lifestyle. It's community-based. How hard has it been to, stay in that community vibe during this pandemic situation? I mean, I guess technically you can surf because it's done alone.
It's an individual sport.
It's an individual sport, but the community aspect of it is basically gone during the pandemic.
Well, what happened actually is binawal sila to surf. They weren't allowed to surf until I think August or September.
Yeah.
And this is La Union, this is Siargao. Now you have to understand, our team is spread all over. We have in La Union, we have in Baler, we have in Bicol, we have in Siargao, we have in Samar. For the Class A, we have individual coaches for them. But because of the pandemic, no surfing. What we did was for the main centers, and this is with the help of the Philippine Sports Commission, which is basically San Juan, La Union, and Siargao, we had a weights program, we had a fitness program. There were coaches from that area who would push our athletes. So we got by. And then the moment they were cleared, they're surfing now. But it was like everybody else. Binawal sila surfing, kahit individual siya. Until I think about August or September. In fact, La Union San Juan was only open to outsiders last week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're getting along. like the rest of the world. But I think the Indonesians have been surfing. Eh. Wala atang limitations yung Indonesian team.
Doc, what's in store for the national team in 2021?
2021 will be the elimination. We still have an outside chance for the Olympics. Now, Tokyo Olympics is just shortboard. Hindi natin forte ang shortboard. Although si Marama, si Tokong, won a World Self League competition. He was number 1. Hindi natin forte yon. Forte ng Indonesian shot. But we still have an outside chance. There will be the World Surf Games in El Salvador, I think, April. And from there, if we place, pwede tayong pumunta ng Tokyo Olympics. That's one. That's shortboard. And then there will be the World Longboard Games in France. That's around mid-year. Yun, longboard, forte natin yun. Makakalaban yan si Roger Casugay, si J.R. Esquivel. In fact, Luke Landrigan won the longboards Bali Beach Games. Those are the two main competitions we're looking at for 2021.
And before we leave the surfing topic, Doc, is it the same na how you take care of the basketball players? Aside from taking care of the entire federation sa inyo, are you also the medical consultant or have you passed that on to other people?
Because they're isolated, we have other people taking care of them. And besides, ang injuries naman sa surfing are relatively, unless makagat ka ng pating. The worst we probably... the worst.
Natakot si Carlo bigla.
No, really. When we were surfing in early 2000s, Sambales yun, you're on the lineup, tapos bigla lang yung, may pating na dadaan. Pero busog ang mga pating dito, kaya hindi it's that. Anyway, like I was saying, the worst we've had in a competition was shoulder dislocation. It's not that bad. Kasi sanay naman, very resilient ang mga Pinoy. So, we're okay. If it needs surgery, they come here for me. But so far, knock on wood, we haven't had any serious injuries yet.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. Moving on now to another topic. Kasi, Doc, sobrang sakit ng balikat ko. Ano kaya yung pwedeng...
Hindi mo ba pinatanong yung daliri kong bali, ha? Doc, hindi ko na mabali yung daliri ko. Hanggang dyan na lang.
di mo dinala kay Dr. Canlas eh. Tapos ngayon ka kukonsulta.
Hindi ako nagka-teleconsult.
Doc, we know
Speaking of consultation, I just have to tell this legendary story about the 6-time MVP Junmar Fajardo. Si Junmar back in college, wala pang nakakakilala kay Abay. Nasa Cebu pa siya, nagkaroon ng problema sa tuhod. Abay was telling me this, Doc. He was supposed to get an operation, but then, sinabi, hindi. Dalhin nyo sa Manila, dalhin nyo kay Dr. Canlas, and hindi mo siya inoperate, Doc. Ibang pinagawa mo sa kanya. And the rest is history. He became, di ba? Kung na-opera niyan, baka hindi siya naging Junmar, di ba?
Ano yun? Rookie siya. First year college yun. UC.
Yeah.
Injured nung 4th year high school siya. Hindi pa siya masyadong kilala. And then they sent him to me. And I said, no need for surgery. And yeah, he's pretty good. He's having a difficult time recovering from his fracture.
Oh, this one, yeah.
Yeah, kasi walang rehab for, 6 months? Self-rehab siya for 6 months. So we're trying to get him slowly. Determined eh. So sometimes mamamaga kasi masyadong mabilis. So we're trying to hold him back. He should be okay for next year though.
Pero yung at the beginning, Doc, kung natuloy na operahan siya kung hindi na consult sa'yo, baka hindi natin nakilala si Junmar na ganito, di ba? So the Philippines owes you, Doc.
I don't know about that. Medyo swerte lang talaga. And Junmar, remember, I treat the high-end players, so determined talaga sila. You treat them right, they will go back because they're motivated and they're athletically skilled. So may advantage treating the high-end players.
Doc, now moving on to your role with the PBA and specifically with the PBA Bubble, we know that you're in constant conversation with PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall. Can you just explain to us how difficult it was to put together a process, the protocols, just to make sure that the PBA Bubble will be safe?
Our advantage was I'm with the FIBA Medical Commission, so I had protocols with us, and we were able to have the cooperation of the NBA medical team.
Mhm.
Now, the head of sports medicine NBA is John DeFiore. He's with me in the medical committee ng FIBA. So he gave us pointers. In fact, one thing I feel bad about is during the NBA bubble, they were using a saliva test, which they were willing to let us use it here. Ang problema, hindi namin napa-approve, hindi in-approve ng FDA. And as you know, we had some problems also with the testing eventually because we had to rely on certain institutions. It was difficult because we had to test constantly before the players and the media and the staff and the coaches got into the bubble. At least 3 tests yun. Eh.
Yeah.
And believe me, we had problems with that testing also. Most of our problems were nag-positive sila because they were exposed nung March pero hindi na test. So positive sila, by DOH standards dapat na quarantine sila. But going through the history, the timelines and everything, you realize na ano sila, inactive virus yun. It took a while for me to convince certain people na hindi yan active, hindi siya infectious. Those were our main problems. Wala naman very very rare yung nag-positive na infectious during that time period. And then the moment we got them in, CDC was a very good partner. Si Secretary Vince Dizon. But we still had to go through DOH rules. Now, like I said, DOH, understandably, is a bureaucracy. No? They handle the whole Philippines. So to make changes in their protocols for athletic tournament was very difficult for them. It took one suspension of ilan days ba tayo na-suspend? 3, 4
4 days. Yeah.
days. It took one day suspension before we were able to work it out na we changed protocols. Let's be a little more proactive for athletic meet. And from then on, medyo smooth na tayo. But I guess we have to go through that. I suppose talked about we're offering Fiba a bubble next year. Pinag-usapan niyo ba yun?
Yes, sir.
And we're basing it from our experience, PBA.
Yun nga, Doc, ano, we're maybe a game day or maybe maximum 2 game days away from the finals of this PBA bubble. Kung kung mapapaunlakan tayo ng FIBA to have the FIBA bubble here, and kung kakailangan ng susunod na PBA season ay mag-bubble ulit, sana naman hindi. Pero if mauna naman yung FIBA, ano yung mga lessons na nakuha nyo from this bubble na talagang planchado na by the time the next bubble comes around?
Well, one, being very strict. The nice thing about this is the players were very cooperative. Everybody was very cooperative. Second is the testing. I think yung testing natin mas na-refine. The very important part there is we will have our own quarantine center. We cannot rely on a DOH quarantine center kasi iba yung rules nila eh. Automatically, 2 weeks ka doon eh. So false positive ka, automatic 2 weeks ka doon. Whereas if we have our own quarantine center, you're proven to be a false positive, di balik ka na, laro ka na. And that's based on the NBA, WNBA protocols, which are not in the DOH protocols. Again, understandably, kasi bureaucracy on DOH, they can't be very specific. We can be very specific. I think that's very important, yung testing natin. And then, the way we did it, yung in between games, sinesterilize yung court, tapos the people involved, yung busing and everything. It helps a lot that we had this experience. Siguro lang, if I was to add, maybe we should, if we're going to host a FIBA bubble, we might have to look for more courts. Baka kulang yung 2 courts.
Yeah.
No, moving on to another, issue here inside the PBA bubble. Many were worried about injuries because the players were away from the court for 7 months before this, really tough schedule for them na araw-araw yung practice, and then the games were almost every other day. But in terms of just the injuries that happen, parang yung mga injuries kasi are not the ones that are coming from hindi sila condition. Terence was bad because it was a separated shoulder. Kevin Racal had an ACL injury, but I don't think it spoke about the conditioning that the players had heading into the bubble.
You're right. We call those traumatic injuries, no? Aksidente sila. Having a traumatic injury in a sport is related to your exposure time to a game or practice. Ang nangyari doon, na-shorten lang. Dumami yung games nila in 1 week.
Yeah.
Kaya mukhang, wow, ang daming injuries. Whereas, it's really exposure time. You're right. I think the PTs and the strength and conditioning coaches really did well in maintaining. Wala masyadong overuse injuries. Although, yung mga naglalaro ngayon, nakikita mo na, medyo yung mga veterano, pinapahinga na. But you're right, the injuries weren't as bad as we thought, and they were not the overuse injuries that we expected. Only because I think their PTs and coaches did a very good job. Now, I was talking to some of the players outside the bubble. Initially, twice a day practice sila.
Yeah.
But then they realized they needed rest. In fact, some teams wouldn't practice anymore a day after their game. So they all adjusted very well. Now, ito sasabihin sa inyo, even the NBA is not sure. They said they'll open December.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the cases in the United States are really going up.
Yeah.
Grabe. Yeah.
In fact, kausap ko yung Toronto doctor nila. Lumipat ang Toronto sa Florida, di ba?
Yep.
Ang problema, yung linipatan nilang city, mas mataas pa yung incidence kaysa sa Toronto. Even Toronto is on a lockdown now. So, we don't know. Even the NBA is not really sure on their protocols. It's still a wait-and-see thing. Go ahead, Magoo.
I was gonna ask lang, Doc, kasi it was well publicized. Yung Warriors naman, yung ownership, was willing to spend $30 million for this season para lang makakuha ng 50% fans who they will test as they enter. Pero hindi pinayagan ng San Francisco City, hindi pinayagan ng dahil lockdown din naman ng California. Would that have been a good idea? Dahil yun yung contribution nila to testing. Manood kayo, you get a free test. Parang ganun.
Depende kung anong test ang gagamitin nila. It still depends. One thing that is really misunderstood are the types of testing. No? Gold standard pa rin yung swab PCR, pero meron tayong swab na antigen na is not as good, but if you use it quite often, it's almost as good. And then may saliva. So it will depend on the testing. I don't know. It will be very difficult for a city to make an exception. Kaya siguro hindi sila pinayagan. It will be very difficult for... As it is, ang daming nagre-reklamo doon.
Yeah.
So, baka sabihin nila, bakit itong basketball pinapayagan? I don't.
Because generally, Doc, it looks like the Philippines is a lot more careful with the situation. Kasi tayo, when we talk about the next competition ng PBA, which will be in late March or April, we still think that there's a possibility that there would be a bubble. Yeah, and that's 5 months away. So parang mas maganda na siguro na tayo sa PBA, at least in the Philippine setting, are very careful on how to move forward with this.
Well, I'll tell you this. No? I'm very involved because sports medicine ako, but because of FIBA and FIFA, biglang naging infectious diseases ako because of testing. Anyway, I'll tell you this. The Philippines is doing very well. 2 days ago, ang positivity rate natin, meaning of all those tested for that day, 4.6 na lang eh. We used to be 15.
Yeah.
Now 4.6, which is below the WHO of 5.
Yeah.
5%, yeah.
If we continue that, I think we'll do pretty well. As long as the discipline holds, I think we're doing well. There's some states in the United States, 60% ang positivity rate. So imagine, 1 in every 2 na makita mo, positive. So we're doing well. We're doing well.
I think kasi even when I go out, Doc, 99% of the people I see are wearing masks. Yun yung pinaka-importante, di ba, Doc?
Yes, mask. Yung tatlo, mask. Kaya kayo dyan sa bubble, mask, social distance, and washing hands pa rin ang ine-emphasize namin sa inyo.
Well, kaya nga Dok like even in this situation, even in an area na na-test lahat kami, na nag-negative lahat kami, hindi ka pwedeng pumunta ng elevator na hindi ka naka-mask at face shield. Like even here. So parang we also know that it is about messaging, about promoting the wearing of masks and face shields just for added safety.
Pero January 20, aayos na daw doon sa States, Doc. Sa January 20, mukhang magmamask na. Sana naman.
He's going to inherit a very difficult situation.
Doc, speaking about elections, I mean, pinasok na rin naman tayo ni Magoo. We will have the POC elections this coming Friday, and you are running for the first time as a member of the executive board. How did this come about, Doc? Was it something that you really sought out? Was this something that you wanted to do in your career?
Actually, no. If you remember, I was part of the Philippine Olympic Committee until 2007, 2006. And then because of politics and certain nuances of the committee and of Philippine sports, umalis ako sa national scene. I was involved with FIBA, International Olympic Committee. In fact, sa IOC, Oceania ako. Hindi ako Olympic Council Asia. I was under Oceania. In fact, in the London Olympics, I was part of the medical team of Oceania. So I was in London also, not of Asia. No, I didn't, to answer your question, Carlo. But then, Kong Bumble and yung si Tom, they helped me a lot in putting surfing. And I think we can make a difference with people like Al, with Sigoma. I think we can make a little difference. The nice thing about it is I still have my contacts in the IOC, in the Solidarity Movement. So I can use those, which were not used before. And I think we'll be able to help more athletes than surfing na lang. I promise them that I'll be helping them more. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's been very chippy.
To say the least.
To say the least. Pero kaibigan, Bob's a good friend of mine. Si Dr. Charlie Ho is a good friend of mine. They're good friends of mine. And the nice thing, and I keep telling them, buti na lang, doktor ako, I can serve anyone. I'm not a politician. So we'll see. We'll see how it is this Friday.
Pero Doc, does that give you that advantage from an outsider's point of view? Dahil nga doon sa close contacts mo with the actual athletes and the genuine care you have for them, yung perspective na dadalin mo, Doc, that should be an advantage, right?
It's a big advantage. In fact, Magoo, I tell my students na my advantage in my field, sports medicine, is because I was an athlete. Si Mike Kyon will remember me. Mike Kyon was my team captain sa track and field sa UP. And he put up gintong alay. Hindi niya alam kung sinong kukunin niya. Siyempre, kukunin niya yung mga teammates niya. So I was in the first batch of gintong alay. That's why I ended up representing the Philippines in Bangkok. Now, Magoo, Carlo, at that time, walang sports medicine. Pag ma-injure ka, they'll send you to this doctor sa Quiapo. May rolling pin siya. Rolling pin, ha? Pucha, iro-rolling pin niya yung injury. Iro-rolling pin niya yung injury mo. Sa sakit. Exactly. Sa sakit, babalik ka sa coach. Coach, okay na ako. And then it evolved. Suddenly, naging acupuncture. So there was this doctor. And the old, sila Chito Loizaga siguro remember this. The older PBA players will remember this. Kinukuryente yung injury mo. Lalagyan ka ng acupuncture. Pero hindi flame. Nakakuryente yun. Tapos, rev up niya. Mamamatay yung pain and you're back to it. And that's what convinced me to become a sports medicine doctor. When it wasn't, hindi pa uso nun. In fact, when I graduated sa PGH, ayaw nila akong mag-sports medicine. In fact, when I got back from my training, ayaw nila magtayo ng sports medicine section. This is
Oh.
and that's why I'm very thankful sa PSC noon. They put up a sports medicine center. And then the hospital that I was involved with put up a sports medicine center. And it evolved from that. Tapos yung yung Lorenzo family, I'm very close to them. So they put up, if you remember, ewan ko, Carlo, bata ka pa eh. Magoo, alam mo ito. Yung Moro Lorenzo Sports Center was the first sports center na all-inclusive.
Mhm.
May gym, may PT, may playing field. And from then on, nag-offshoot na. Marami nang ganyan. In fact, right now, the one in Laguna is very good.
Oh.
Venue in Laguna. And then there's one in the one that Patafa uses in Santo sa Rizal sa Patafa dito sa may Daang Hari. It's sponsored by Ayala. That
Yeah.
one's
Oh, okay.
But we have
No.
centers around. Yes.
Doc,
Yes,
as you said, this is a personal advantage for you because you're closely involved with the athletes. But unfortunately, the athletes, aren't the ones voting in this. It involves heavy politics, and we saw, the ugly side of it because there was actually a bid to disqualify you from even entering the POC elections. So were you surprised? Did it catch you off guard that someone would ask for your disqualification?
It didn't surprise me, but it disappointed me. But that's how it is. And that's why I didn't involve myself with any national institution for almost 15 years, more than 15 years, because it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating. Like I said, I wasn't in PSC anymore. I was in POC. But when there would be injuries, I'd still treat them like pro bono. But it didn't surprise me, but it was quite disappointing. But that's how it is here. That's how it is here. It's died down a little the past few days. Pero if you're part of the Viber groups, magugulat ka.
Talagang yikes.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it is. We'll try to work with the framework if I'm lucky. And like I said, Al is a good person. I don't know why Al also accepted it. We'll see how it is. We'll see how it is. Did you ask Al about it? Why he accepted running?
Well, he said here that he wanted to support President Bambol first and foremost, and that he felt he could do a lot to help the athletes as well. It was all about the athletes. Yun naman yung sabi ni SBP President Alpangid.
It is all about the athletes.
Hopefully yung electors listen to their athletes because this is what it's about, di ba? It's for the athletes naman talaga.
It is. It should be about the athletes. But remember, we're not isolated in that. Even the U.S. Olympic Committee now is in turmoil because of politics. In fact, ang nangyayari, there's U.S. Congress set a law that they can oversee the U.S. Olympic Committee because of what happens sa gymnastics sa kanila. But that's against IOC rules. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But being a pandemic, sports is really not a priority right now of the government. And I'm happy Kong Bambo is able to push for the bayanihan so that our athletes will still get their allowances. Malaking bagay yun. Malaking bagay yun.
Yeah.
Doc, and last, we thank you so much for your time and for me personally being part of the PBA Bubble. Thank you for the work that you put in because parang the feeling of safety here inside, parang hindi mo mabibili yung peace of mind that everyone has here inside the group.
Yes, Carlo. That's what I kept telling nung nagkakagulo dyan, nung nagka-false positive. That's what I kept telling the players. You're probably in a safer place than your family is now. So they shouldn't worry about you. That bubble is really safe. And I'm glad we're working through it. And maybe we could have other work, specifically FIBA and UAP is thinking of a bubble right now.
Yeah, hopefully, Doc, we will have those in the future. Syempre, mas masaya kung hindi na bubble setup, but if the situation requires for it to be a bubble, we're very confident that we can do this over again. Doc Canlas, again, thank you. But before we let you go, just a message to your athletes, to the surfers, and all athletes, all Filipino athletes in general, heading into what should be a very interesting POC election this coming Friday.
Well, I really don't campaign, but I'm hoping that whoever wins will be more for the welfare of the athletes and not selective. That there are venues wide open for them. That hopefully we can open more, like solidarity scholarships, to more athletes and to select athletes. And rest assured, there are people there who, one way or another, will work for your welfare. That's it.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much for your time. Again, maraming salamat po sa inyong patuloy na pagsubaybay. This has been episode 10 of the second season of 2OT under the Tiebreaker Times podcast family. As a reminder, 2OT is presented by Smart. Simple, smart, game-changing. Simple, smart kami ni Magoo. Para kay Magoo Marjon, para po kay Doc Raul Canlas. My name is Carlo Pamintua and see you again next time.